Hello! You're probably watching this video because you, yes you, dear viewer, wish to play Final Fantasy XIV. Well, as someone who has played since 2023 and has put in thousands of hours into the game, I have the expertise to obviously do this little TED Talk for y'all. Here are my credentials. Don't mind that I'm not caught up with the most recent patch content. Now, this video is specifically for my friends who I'm making this guide for, but I figured, hey, let's make something I can push out into the world and just make a video. Anybody watching this, you can either skip through any of the parts here, or watch all the video, or none of it. Also, this isn't really needed to play the game, but I find that it can be overwhelming at first to get into Final Fantasy XIV, and I wanted this guide to hopefully help people get into the game and start playing. Now, let's begin. You might think, hey, isn't this a little weird that you need a portion of the video of just downloading the game? Well, you'd be wrong. There's two versions. There's the Steam and Final Fantasy XIV launcher. Don't get the Steam version. I mean, you can if you want, but most people accidentally get the starter edition, thinking that you have to pay a one-time payment for it, but you don't, and then you'll have to be made to pay monthly, and that is the account you'll have to use for your character unless you make a new account. Also, you won't get any of the things you actually want from the game. So just go to the Final Fantasy XIV sign-up website, click Yes to Selling Your Soul, and download. Now, you'll make a Square Enix account as part of this process, which is somewhat easy. The link will be in the description to go ahead and sign up. You'll sign up, verify your account, and do whatever you need to do with that, and then you should be able to go ahead and log in and start your adventure. Now, there's no remember password login, just remember username, so go ahead and click that, and you'll be good to go. Once you've installed the 150 gigabyte game, it is a big-ass game, you can log in and see that beautiful Aroma-born start screen. You can begin to make your character. Probably ask you what data center you want to play on. If you're living on the East Coast, you'll most likely want to pick the Primal data center and then choose a server to play in. There is where you'll make your character. Making your character will probably take a while. Here we have the playable races of Eorzea, the name of the world. Don't worry, we'll learn like 5 seconds once you start. Here we have the Hearer, which are the humans, the Elzen, which are the giraffe elves, the Lalafell, the short ones, Makote, the cat people that are Gaga for, Rogadin, the tall and beefy guys, Ara, the lizard people, not dragons by the way, the distinction does matter, and also the best race, Hrothgar, the lion people, and the Viera, the bunny people that everyone mega gagas for. Once you pick one of these, you'll be able to make your adjustments. Unfortunately, there's not much intense adjustments you can do as it is all presets, but there are some things you can do to make a unique character. Once you start playing the game, there are tons more options you can do to unlock more things. This is also a great time to jump into the game because you all get to experience the ability to glamour any piece of equipment to use on any job, something that's never been in the game before. After customizing your goofball, word of light, it'll ask you what your character's birthday is and what DDD you worship. This is the more of a immersion thing than anything that has an actual mechanical benefit. It will then ask you the big question, what class do you want to pick? It doesn't matter what class you pick at first, because this is what you'll be playing for at least the first couple of hours. These classes will eventually turn into the age-old Final Fantasy term, a job. There are 3 roles you can play a class from: tank, healer, and DPS. The tank classes are the Gladiator, which turns into the Paladin, and the Paladin is a more supportive tank job, wielding a sword and shield, granting more protection to your allies, giving you the ability to heal your allies at later levels, and the ability to summon giant swords at level 90 to 100. You have the Marauder, which turns into the Warrior. The Warrior is the never getting killed job, unless you play really, really badly, and is more of a sustained tank. You wield a giant axe, and you have abilities that grant you HP recovery and rage to keep you swinging and dealing big damage. Eventually, you literally turn into the axe. The healer classes are the Conjurer, which turns into the White Mage. The White Mage is a pure healer job, giving big heals and regeneration to your party mates. And to be honest, the White Mage is one of the easiest jobs in the game, as your rotation is nothing super complex. You could probably press a button, go make tea, come back, press another button, and then just keep healing. This also makes it one of the more boring starting classes, as you don't get a ton of abilities until around level 50, once you actually have your job leveled up to a decent level. The DPS classes are the Pugilist, which turns into the Monk. The Monk is a physical DPS job, which is what it sounds like, where you punch your enemies to death. This job has a more, in quotes, complicated rotation, as doing certain ability paths gives you certain buff effects. Eventually you weave your abilities to hit crazy kung fu attacks, as far as I can tell. I haven't really leveled Monk that much, so I've only seen people online play it, and it seems pretty fun. The Lancer, which turns into the Dragoon, the coolest one. The Dragoon is my personal main job, and arguably the coolest job in my onion. The Dragoon is a physical DPS job that pierces your enemies and allows you to use dragon killing techniques to jump on an enemy in a piercing strike. This is my propaganda to become a fellow Gooner and jump on it. Also, here's a clip to help you make that decision. The Archer, which turns into the Bard. The Bard is a physical ranged DPS job that has a more support role, where you wield bows and musical instruments to give buffs to your allies and remove detrimental effects. This job isn't very powerful, and damaging enemies early game can be a little difficult, but nothing undoable. The Bard can shoot some crazy shit at enemies like this. The Thaumaturge, which turns into the Black Mage, is a magical ranged DPS job. Your main thing is swapping between two phases, your Umbral phase, which is less damaging but regens your mana, and your Astral phase, which is your big DPS time. This class, early levels, like until level 60, are really difficult and can get kind of boring, but they have some of the coolest drip later on. The main thing is the long cast times for your spells, which can be interrupted if you get hit, so it can make kind of a frustrating experience unless you have help for grinding levels. But you can also cast magic like this later on. The Arcanist, which turns into the Summoner and Scholar. The Arcanist can turn into two jobs that you can both get at level 30. It turns into the Summoner, a magical ranged DPS job that summons different Eidolons, and you'll learn more about that later, that deals different effects. It's a pretty simple job, and you get a cute carbuncle. Then, that carbuncle can turn into fucking Bahamut. It also turns into the Scholar, a healer job. It also turns into the Scholar, another healer job, that instead of using Eidolons to cast your healing spells, you use the power of fairies, and that eventually can turn into bigger fairies. This healer job does a mix of shielding and pure heals, and summons big barriers of damage reduction, and eventually you become a big fairy. These are all the base classes, and as you hit certain levels, you can unlock new jobs. However, These are all the base classes as you hit certain levels, and you can unlock new jobs. However, this is more of a later thing, being able to unlock these new jobs starting at level 50, as every expansion brings new jobs for you to play. I really wouldn't worry about these jobs until you hit level 50, more about that later. You may be asking me, Arcane, what about playing with friends, or doing LFGs, looking for groups, or Party Finder in this game, for Dungeons and Raids? Don't have to think about party composition? Well, the answer is, it does and doesn't really fully matter. The main thing about playing a class and job is that you want to play one that you want to play and feels fun to play. The great thing about Final Fantasy XIV is that you can play every single class and job on one character. Please don't make a new character for a single class you want to play. You'll have to start over from the beginning story-wise with no items or money to transfer this character. You have to start everything from zero from the very beginning. If you're playing with friends, pick a job you want to play. If the party comp is super important, pick another class you want to play and level that up alongside your main job when you can. But you mostly want to focus on your main job that you'll be playing throughout the story. More on leveling later. But the main thing is that if you want to run content with friends together, it would be important to have at least a single class between y'all that's different. Talk about which class each person is thinking about playing, but don't feel pressured in a class or role you don't want to at least be your main. Like one person can be a tank, one person can be a healer, one person can be a DPS, and another person can be another tank. It sort of depends on your friends and or what you want to play as, really. Your starting class also depends on what city you'll start at. Don't worry, once you make it to a certain part of the story, you'll be able to go to city to see your friends if they're playing in the same server as you're grinding the early levels. For Gladiator, Pugilist, and Black Mage, you start in the desert city-state of Ul'dah, full of merchants and gold. For Marauder, Arcanist, and the only Aroma-born extra class you can unlock early, the Rogue, you start in Limsa Lominsa, a once Pirate Haven turned city-state, and for the Rogue, that will turn into the Ninja starting at level 30, a melee DPS, which will allow you to do the ninjutsu and summon giant toads like Naruto. Then for where I started, for the Lancer, Archer, and Conjurer, you start in Gridania, a forested city-state full of trees, and well, that's about it. It's a quaint city. I want to briefly talk about the expansion of this game, what it gives you, and what you need to know. If you want to skip this part, there are temple links in the description. So, when you start your game, you start out in the base game, called A Realm Reborn, which, in a very quick history lesson, because I am speedrunning this script, was not how the first game was launched. It was first launched in 2013, and played very slowly and very differently from what we have today. It was criticized heavily, and did not do good. Then our Lord and Savior Yoshi P, who you sold your soul to, literally in-game new to the region a year ago, severely changing certain areas in the region and restarted everything, having it be a Realm Reborn. See? History lesson done. Now, technically, the first expansion to the game is Heavensward, which brought the jobs Dark Knight, Machinist, and Astrologian. Now, the thing about these jobs is that you actually need to have gotten to Heavensward, the expansion, which is not something that occurs in any other expansion, as I realized it was a bad decision. And when you pick up these jobs specifically, you start them at level 30. You need to grind levels to be able to use them at level 50 plus quests, which includes if you want to use them in the Heavensward expansion, which will end you at around level 60, or above when you finish it. The next expansion, which is available to free trial players, is the Stormblood expansion. Now, the quest for the expansion starts at level 60. This expansion brought the Samurai job, Red Mage job, which are available to get at level 50, and unlocks at level 50. So you need to grind them to use these jobs for the expansion if you want. Unlike the Heavensward expansion, you can get these jobs while you're still in a Realm Reborn, as long as one job is level 50. After Stormblood is Shadowbringers, which will be needed to own the expansion and purchase the game to get the races that appear in the expansion, the Viera, and the jobs, the Gunbreaker and the Dancer, which can get at level 60. The expansion quests start at level 70. Then it's Endwalker, the last expansion in the first overarching story arc. It starts its quests at level 80 and goes into level 90. This expansion brought the Reaper job and the Sage job. With the new era, we have the Dawntel expansion, my first expansion I got to experience on release. This expansion starts at level 90 and goes into level 100. This expansion brought the Viper and Pictomancer jobs, which are available to get at level 80. The reason why they start these jobs 10 levels before the expansion prerequisite is so you can decide to either grab these jobs when the expansion drops and grind them to use in the story, or jump in with your main job and grab them later. Now that I've covered expansions, let's talk about starting your adventure. So, you've made your character, picked their class, and you're ready to start your adventure. Now, once you log in, you'll get a queue time, and this is normal, so just wait a minute and you'll get into the game. It's not really a queue, and it always takes a little bit before getting logged in. Then, you'll get a starting cutscene for a bit, and you're plopped down in your city. It will ask you how you want to play. You can choose either from a controller or mouse and keyboard. Honestly, the whole hotbar is super customizable to how you want to play, and the controller is actually really good in this game. Now, there are a couple of settings that, if changed, can make your experience a little easier, nothing you want to worry about. You can skip this if you want. First, press escape, then character configuration, then make sure movement type is on legacy type. Also, real quick, turn on skip playback of previously viewed scenario cutscenes. Then you want to click on the character tab and have these set up for your character settings, and then these for the battle effect settings. This part is not technically something that you really need to do early in the game, but if you have a less powerful computer or laptop, it's helpful to have these battle effects set so your eyes don't get blasted by everybody else's ability effects. Second, because the movement is a little weird to newcomers to these kind of MMOs, here are my settings to get a more natural feeling movement. You want to go out of these settings, go to the system menu, then click keybinds. Then you'll want to right click where it says A, D, Q, and E to remove the keybind. Then in the strafe left, you will want to left click and press A to make that keybind A on your keyboard, then left click the strafe right and click D on your keyboard. Try that out and see if you prefer it. Again, this is just how I play. It is by no means the best or definitive, just some stuff I've done to make it easier for me to actually play. Now with all the setting BS out of the way, you can start your adventure, or you could already start once you spawn in and do this another time. But as a new player, you'll almost immediately have a bunch of quests shoved in your face. You can do as many quests as you want, but I did want to point out the most important ones starting out as a new player. These two are the most important quest icons that you want to grab and follow. The other icon will look like this, and are not story or job related quests, or unlock things. These are just things for fun, and do a little side story. Sometimes they can also unlock certain things like cosmetics or events depending on the time of year. If you're watching this video, it's because you're about to jump into Final Fantasy XIV, and you're wanting some advice. Here's my advice regarding quests that I think is imperative for new players. Make sure you do your MSQ quests and your class quests. Don't forget about those. Especially do your class quests. Every class and job have quests that lock at certain levels and will unlock new abilities for you. For the base classes, this appears at 1, 4, 6, 15, 18, 26, and then 30, which is when you'll get your job. you will have to do all of these quests in order to actually get your job stone. Then you'll have quests from level 30, 35, sometimes 38, 40, 45, sometimes 46, and then 50. Please do your job quests. Otherwise, go crazy with the quests. The only thing that progresses the story is the MSQ quests, so just keep that in mind and you're good to go. Now for the first 15-ish levels, you'll be doing your city quests, which are specific to your city, until you begin the MSQ that expands the story to be outside of your starting city. The last thing I want to talk about starting your adventure is that when it comes to MSQ, A Realm Reborn is admittedly a bit of a slog, but please don't let that put you off. Maybe I'm a freak, but A Realm Reborn is incredibly special as you begin to meet the characters that you'll have on your journey and the story the entire way. It'll also slowly get you accustomed to the game, its mechanics, and your abilities. It's the foundation for the entire game, and I really advise against skipping Realm Reborn and its cutscenes. Some cutscenes might be very boring, and the ones on voice can be skimmed at most. I know that sounds like a hypocritical thing to say right after I say how much I love this expansion, or the base game technically, but I'm not a monster. You mainly, very much, just need to pay attention to the voice cutscenes at least. Remember, it is a Final Fantasy game first, and an MMO second. After all is said and done, I have talked about the things that I really wanted new players to know about going into the game. The rest is just playing, leveling, and doing your duties, which include dungeons and trials, which are boss fights. The main scenario quest does give plenty of XP, and always make sure you're leveled enough to do the main quest. But I have a few tips on if you decide to pick up a second class in your early game. Once you get to a certain level and unlock a certain amount of content, you will gain access to your duty finder, which are a set of daily missions you can do to gain extra XP and gold. The one you unlock first and have first is leveling, which will run any dungeon or trial that you have unlocked at that point and give you extra XP for completing said dungeon or trial. Another fun tool you can use is Hunting Log, unlocked early on and requires you to go and kill certain monsters, giving extra XP. And once you complete a rank in the Hunting Log, it will give you even more XP and unlocks the next rank. This is only available for the base classes and the rogue. This is by far the best and easiest way to level your class quickly and efficiently, as well as level up any other additional classes you want to pick up. So, this is where I want to talk about what it's like playing in a group setting. If you have a group of friends that all diving into Final Fantasy XIV, it is a fun and collaborative experience when it is collaborative. Like I said earlier, Final Fantasy XIV is a Final Fantasy game first and an MMO second, which means its focus is going to be on you as the Warrior of Light, progressing the story and then doing dungeons and trials and raids with others. I would highly recommend for any group that's new coming to this to make leveling and story progression a solo event, and then if you want to schedule a time to run a dungeon, for example, you can definitely do that. But I personally think it is vital for players to run the content on their own, and if they really want to do the dungeon they just unlocked right there in the story, then just do it then and there. But always make sure you go back and help your friends run through the dungeon when they get to it. And if you're hiding XP and story, I'd recommend not getting too far from your friends just so you're all around the same story area, if this is a group thing. There are literally hundreds of hours of other content to do in the meantime. You can go to the Gold Saucer, level another class, do crafting, fishing, or honestly take a break. If I had to tell someone a single piece of advice to tell myself when I first started, it is to take breaks and don't rush. Not saying you can't play for hours on end and experiencing the story or have fun fucking about, but don't feel bad if you play for a little and then take a break from the game for a bit. Even Yoshi P, our Lord and Savior, says to take breaks when you want. The story and game will be right there when you want to play again. So, if you find you're a bit ahead of your friends, take a break, play something else, and wait for them to catch up. The great part about dungeons is that as long as you are equal to or above the item level and the job level the dungeon requires, you'll be synced to the dungeon's prerequisite level and item level. Now, this is my last chapter of the video, and one last bit I want to talk about is who to avoid. This is not me telling you not to interact with anybody or make new friends or whatever, but this community has a reputation both good and bad. There are normal players, which are the vast majority, and very cool and very chill. But there are players who unfortunately treat this game like it's their second life, and there are some people who clock out of work and then clock into this game and take it too seriously, and take it a little too far. Some people might be weird, but if you find anyone that's just kind of an oddball, use the blacklist feature and you're good to go. There's not really much else to it. If you want to see these stories of what these people do, or anything, just search for Final Fantasy XIV horror stories, and there are a plethora to read. Mostly entertaining. That being said, please don't let me saying this deter you from interacting with the community. There are some really kind and friendly people out there just waiting to help. People are very friendly to new players and sprouts and are willing to help you go through any content and just help you get through the story. The only thing I'd say about this is just avoid the Balmung's quicksands. That's the Goon server. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for listening to me ramble. I do care about this game a lot, even if I'm not caught up. The things I said in this video may be missing details, or some extra information, or just things about the early game that I may have forgotten and haven't experienced in a while. If so, I'm happy to answer any questions in the comments, or in DMs if you're my friends who this video was made for. The main thing about the end goal of this video, and me just talking, is just mainly do what you want, and enjoy the story. That's really the main purpose of this game. It's a journey, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You want to take your time, enjoy the time that you have with your friends, enjoy meeting new people, and experiencing the story that Final Fantasy XIV has to offer. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to stand tall, my friends.